Hi everyone. I'm going to talk about new properties view features that enable scalable application designs in Storyboard 9. If we take a look at the properties view, we can see a few new properties for every control and every layer. And those are scale and the anchor. The scale value lets you define a dimension of a particular control or layer, so either the x, y, width, or height, as a relative value compared to its parent control or layer. And then the anchor value defines the point within that control or layer from which the dimension will originate. And combining these two properties will allow you to define your controls in a way where your application will scale to any size without needing to make any more changes to your model. So if we take a look at an example here, so I have this header, this simple header layer, and I want the controls inside of it to be centered vertically relative to the header. So you can see for my logo control here, I've anchored it vertically around the center, which has set the Y scale to 0.5, meaning that we now inherit half of the parent height value as our Y. And we do want this one to be left anchored, but we can still apply a fixed offset value just to give it a little bit of space from the edge. Similarly, on the right side, we're centered vertically here as well, but we want to anchor this one to the right, giving it a 100% scale value from the parent layer, but we need a bit of wiggle room from the right edge of the screen, so we have a fixed negative x offset applied. So for the scale values, the values between 0 and 1 represent 0% to 100% of the parent control value. So in particular, a value of 1 here means that we're inheriting 100% of the parent width for this value. And then the fixed value is just applied on top of that. To be clear, though, you can potentially define the scale to be outside of that boundary. For example, it might be valid in some cases where you have off-screen content. You want to define your scale value to be greater than 1 or inherit greater than 100% of your parent dimension, and that's completely valid. It totally depends on the use case, but in this case, we've defined it like this just to make sure that as we resize this header, our controls render properly without actually having to make any changes. So you can see that as I drag this header vertically, all my controls are still centered within it as I want them to be. And similarly, if I'm making this header smaller, our controls are following as we want them to. And just for another example, we have this calendar control inside a layer that is entirely defined by its parent. We just want to make sure that it's centered in its parent at all times, which is simple. You just set the anchor to the center. We have scale values of 0.5, no offsets necessary, and then no matter what we do to the parent layer, we know that this control is always going to be centered within it properly. And another good point when you're using scale values, negative values for the fixed and even the scale in some cases are perfectly valid as well. So just like above here, for example, where we need this right aligned relative to the parent, but we apply a small negative offset just to give it a little space from the right side. So that's completely valid. And this scalability translates to the runtime as well. So you can see if I simulate, and then I'll run another simulation, but at a different size. You can see that the scalability of the header, we get exactly what we want. And if we go down to the calendar, we can see it's centered exactly as we want it to be. And that was without having to make any changes to the model at all.